Welcome to episode number 248 of the Marine Layer podcast. It's our mailbag episode. We'll open it up and answer your guys' best listener questions. Bryce Miller's going to be back on the bump this weekend. We'll react to that and some of the news and nuggets coming out from the series against the Nationals.
Stay on top of all of our stuff, you guys. If you want to do that, you can do it in a few different ways, but we recommend one. Just go over to our website. It's marinelayerpod.com, where you'll find everything. You can find our merch. You can find our live show schedules. You can get all your episodes over there. If you want to sign up for our Patreon and get in on some of these mailbag questions and get priority, head over there. You can sign right up over at our website, marinelayerpod.com, one-stop shop, and you can find us everywhere across social media as well, at Marine Layer Pod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. One more from Jansen. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game at 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording on Thursday evening, May 29th. So many things to get to this week, Lyle. It has been an insanely busy week for us. We have some really exciting content coming up soon that we were recording today, but let's start off with this. Lots of positive injury news for the Mariners as it's continued throughout the week, and we have an announcement finally that Bryce Miller will be back in the rotation. We thought he might, the next time he throws live, he would go back into the Mariners rotation, and it was officially announced today here on Thursday that he will start on Saturday. So this means, I'd say, a lot of good things, and there's a lot of moving parts with this, but the initial reaction, I'll say for Bryce, has to be overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah, and you just mean in terms of him being able to get back on the mound.
This quickly. All the worry out of the first time he went on the IL. He does everything he needs to while he's on the IL and throwing his sim games, and has done what he needs to do, or what he's needed to do to start feeling better and get back and pitch. He did. This is what we needed from him, right? We said, okay, rest, figure out the issue, and get back and get ready to go. And he did that in 2 weeks on the dot.
And he had some real confidence that that's what he was going to do. And shout out to Bryce Miller for doing exactly that, because he didn't spend that much time on the IL. He feels like he's gotten this right. He feels like the cortisone shots helped, and I hope it does. Now, I think we're going to learn pretty quickly, like we've talked about, in terms of how good Bryce Miller's feeling after this IL stint, because I think in 3-ish starts, we'll be able to tell, okay, is his stuff back? Is he still up in the mid-90s, late in the start, late in the game? Is his secondaries playing up? All that stuff. We'll be able to tell pretty early. And I hope it's all right. And I hope we get peak Bryce Miller back, because peak Bryce Miller, as we saw last year, was one of the best starters in the American League. The Mariners could really use him. So I think we will get a pretty good tell early on. But the first step to that, before we can even get the tell, is getting Bryce back on the mound. And that is about to happen this Saturday at T-Mobile Park. So people should be absolutely fired up for it.
Now, unfortunately, since Bryce is going to come back and he's going to get into the rotation this weekend, that did require a roster move and a member of the rotation to be sent down, and the Mariners decided it was going to be our guy Logan that got sent down to Tacoma. And I need to give our guy Logan a round of applause, because what a fucking start he had earlier this week.
Dude.
Unbelievable. Gets through the 8th inning at the big league level, and even though he gets sent down, his ERA is sub-3 at this point. I mean, very cool opportunity for him. They wrote a story about him in the Times today. Adam Jude was down there at Tacoma talking with him about, sort of how he felt getting sent down in that moment. He was a little disappointed, but ultimately he said, hey, I understand, I got to grind, and I've shown that I can be a big league starter. And I think, I was so happy for him earlier this week to watch him do that. Unfortunately for him, this rotation is just so stacked that there's nothing he could really do unless he's going to, just not allow an earned run ever in the big leagues, which is nearly impossible.
Yeah, it's so hard, and I feel for him. I feel for him because of kind of what he said in the article, the wave of emotions he went through, and what was a 24-hour stretch. You have the best start of your whole life, which, good God, he carved up the Nationals in that start. They couldn't get to him. They just couldn't do it.
It had to probably be one of the best moments of his life.
Yeah, of course it was. You're in the big leagues. You're like, you've made a few starts, and then you go out there and you throw 8 dominant innings. Of course it is. Like, he talked about on his debut day that was one of the best days he'd ever had. And I'm sure it was, for every good reason, that everybody, the way everybody feels when they make a debut. But once you get past that and the nostalgia of a first start, and you get into an outing where you throw 8 dominant innings, I mean, he put on a clinic. Sure, a couple balls got hit decently hard, but for the most part, he was unbelievably economical with his pitch count. Like, he gets James Wood. James Wood got him for the homer, but I was going to say, like, he's getting, like, he got a couple strikeouts in the outing. He's getting a bunch of soft contact as well. Like awesome outing. Like, it was his best outing of his career. Unfortunately, the reality is, and it sucks for Logan, but obviously with the 5 guys the Mariners have when they're all healthy, it's a tough reality to live in for a guy that's trying to crack a rotation spot. But the reality is that, the Mariners have the best rotation in baseball, and those 5 have kind of been stapled for a while. You're looking at, you're giving me a look like something's up.
So full transparency, we're recording this at the end of Thursday's game against the Nationals. Julio just got drilled in the hand, but in the pinky specifically.
Oh, great.
Yeah. He's staying in the game, though.
All right.
That's not great.
No. Usually we do wait till after these games to record, but so let's just fill everybody in. Usually the Mariners will play Thursday afternoon games, whether they're on the road, whether they're at home, maybe they have an off day. This is one of the few rare days, at least early in the year, they have a Thursday night game paired with, it's been a really, really busy day for us in the best of ways because we just went to Tacoma to sit down with Cole Young, which was an awesome interview, which you guys will hear either in the next couple of weeks or immediately after he gets called up. So whichever comes first, we'll put it out for everybody. Anyway, that is why we're recording a little bit early today, just to make sure we can get everything done that we need to get done. Point being, back to baseball, as long as you're ready to actually talk baseball.
I'm just making sure he didn't re-exit the game. It looks like he stayed in the game.
All right, well, good. That is a positive. Let's call it.
Because that would be like, all right, well, throw the topics out.
Yeah, we would be restarting and saying, well, Julio just exited the game. Awesome. Like, awesome being extremely sarcastic, of course, for those who couldn't hear it. That would be awful. Anyway, look, in terms of the answer that Logan gave in the Times article, like the answer he gave about being sent down, that's what he should say. You should not be happy about getting sent down. You shouldn't at all. There is an understanding, which he clearly had, about, look, I understand the rotation is what it is, and those 5 guys have been pretty solidified, but he said a couple things. Like, one, he knows that he proved something to everybody, which he absolutely did, and he knows he'll be back, which is true. So, like, all I want to sit here and do is basically just sing his praises and say he did everything he could have been expected to do and more. To have a sub-3 ERA through 6 starts in the big leagues in this rotation is better than any of the other starters in this rotation can say through 6 starts of their career. Mm-hmm. He absolutely dealt. I mean, he was really good in his debut. He dominates the Padres. He dominates the Nationals. Like, we see the kitchen sink of pitches he throws at people. This dude's going to be here. Like, this dude's got a future in the Mariners rotation. I feel pretty good about saying that, especially after watching him through 6 starts.
Yeah. Very, very happy for what he's done. It's awesome. And we'll see him back in the big leagues this year at some point, I would imagine. They're going to need that starting pitching depth at some point. So awesome for him that he got that. And he's going to get to now have to go grind it out in Tacoma, and he's going to be back, and he's going to be better than ever. And he has showed he is a big leaguer. He's a big league starter, and he can hang with this league. He doesn't need to get shoved into the bullpen to make the big leagues and do that. No, I mean, he has earned himself a rotation spot at some point when it comes open. I think he has, as you said, a future in that Mariners rotation. I think it's going to be so cool for him.
I'll tell you what, last thing on this.
Sure.
The way he just pitched, we've been talking about this for a while now, about that Luis Castillo no trade clause expiring on the 1st of January. The way Logan Evans just pitched, I'd have to imagine the Mariners are opening their ears just a little bit more after that about the idea of trading him away. I already personally think Luis Castillo will probably be in another uniform next year. But if you're the Mariners and you've got a guy who's making league minimum at 23 years old with 6 years of club control and just showed you everything that he showed you through his first 6 starts, versus a guy making $23 million a year, and unfortunately, you can see he is starting to, I don't want to say get on the other side of the hill. That's not fair, but like again, he's not the same guy he once was. And if you're the Mariners, I think they're going to really take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And
we could talk about this more because we do have a mailbag question directly about this subject. So, another thing I will note from injury-wise this week, in terms of positivity here on Thursday, Jorge Polanco started in the DH role batting right-handed today against Mackenzie Gore. Mm-hmm. Big positive. Given that we were at the ballpark on Tuesday, Justin Hollander was doing his media scrum, and no one else asked about Jorge Polanco, so I asked Hollander. If you follow us on Twitter, you probably saw this clip about Polanco's knee, and if there was anything lingering with Polanco's knee as to why he was not playing in the field or batting right-handed, and Hollander said, there's no issue. I think everything's fine, for the most part. And I was like, well, okay. But now, actually, wow, I mean, it's progress that he's batting right-handed today in multiple at-bats, planned, not in an emergency. So that is another positive right there, that Jorge Polanco has at least taken that next step forward. And this could also be saying, like, he probably could be playing in the field at some point. If he's okay enough to be batting right-handed, I would assume they wouldn't have much of a problem putting him in the field. The thing is, he's just not as good of a fielder as the other people they could put in the field. Therefore, they're just going to stick him at DH.
No, but the plan was supposed to be to have him play third base somewhat regularly. That was the plan when they signed him.
Right, but why force that if he's clearly worse at it than the other guys? Like, would you rather them just be worse in the field?
No, but I also, again, we've talked about how Ben Williamson has the real potential here to get overexposed. And we know he struggled a little bit at the plate over the last couple weeks once the league adjusted to him a little bit. So, like, I wouldn't hate the idea of Polanco being out there when a right-hander's on the mound and you put Williamson out there against lefties to play third and you get him off his feet. And then Williamson could sub in late and play some defense late in the game when Polanco's starting at third. Something like that. Because, again, like, it's the messaging again, man. Like,
sure.
Like this is what kind of gets to me a lot of the time. We were told at the start of the year, Jorge Polanco is going to be the team's third baseman. Fine, but 5 games in, that goes away because he's battling injuries. And, well, we don't even know if he's healthy. This is the thing. Like, I know he's batting right-handed here on Thursday, but is it going to be regular? Is he going to get back to hitting right-handed all the time? Is it a one-off? Again, he's still not playing in the field. This is why it's a little bit of a head-scratcher when we talk about this Polanco injury. And I'm at the point where, look, we get questions about it all the time, whether it's, listener comments or DMs on social media or just people that talk to us about baseball. We get a lot of it. And we get a lot of questions about, like, what's the deal with Polo? I'm at the point where I'm just going to tell people, look, guys, I don't know. And we tried. Like, you tried the other day. Because last week, Dan Wilson was asked about it, and he said, oh, Polanco's fine. And then you asked Hollander about it, and he said, well, like, the knee's fine. At this point, Jorge Polanco is still basically only hitting from one side. He's not playing the field. He's not hitting well, but by all accounts, he's totally healthy. And I have a little bit of a hard time personally believing that. Like, and by the way, I have a hard time believing it's personally. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not inside those walls in the building, but I just have a hard time believing it's not the knee. I don't know how a side injury personally keeps you out this long from playing the field and from not hitting from one side of the plate, because it's not a strained oblique. If it was a strained oblique, he'd be on the IL. So
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
So I'm still having a little bit of a hard time believing it's not the knee. If I were to take my personal guess, I still think it's the knee, and that whether it's Polanco or the Mariners or both that don't really want it out there is certainly possible. And people have not gotten much information on it. It's why we've talked about it's been such a mystery all year. Like, we don't have an answer, guys. We tried. Like, we tried to get one. We didn't get one.
Here's another, I would say, issue with what you just proposed there. When was the last time we've been at the field and you watched him take grounders at third?
Oh, he doesn't take grounders at third almost ever. He's
exactly the point. So there's no, how would he platoon at third base then?
Which, again...
Right. Yes. I mean, it comes back to, right, you said it comes back to the messaging. Clearly the messaging has changed, and the Mariners looked at some combination of his health and watched him at third base and said, it's just not worth it over the other options, is what they've sort of garnered right now. Think of it. If Jorge Polanco is like a league average hitter, but is a worse defender than he was last year because the health of his body is just not quite there, is that valuable enough to be worth playing in the field?
I mean, I guess not.
I just don't see the sense of like forcing it if they really just don't think that he could consistently handle himself in the field and that he could do it more than like once a week at this point.
And maybe they don't.
At least if he could switch hit, you just throw him in the DH role out, and then you don't have to worry about the platoon thing that we were talking about on the radio earlier this week of how if he can only hit left-handed, then that puts the Mariners in a pickle. Well, it doesn't really put them in a pickle if he can switch hit. Then it becomes significantly less of an issue, and then you just worry about his bat heating out.
That's right. And if they don't feel that somebody like Mitch Garver would capably fill the DH role right now, then sure, putting Polanco out at third base isn't necessary. You just roll with Williamson for now and leave him at the DH spot. Starting at the start of the year, I think the idea was Polanco would play third. You bank on some sort of Mitch Garver bounce back. You play a little more DH, and that could change some things offensively for the good. But Garver hasn't been awful by any means. He hasn't been lighting the world on fire either, by any means. So maybe they feel like Polanco at DH is just their best option at this point. I would like to know at the very least why he has not been consistently hitting from both sides of the plate.
And that's a great question. You're right. And we don't know the answer to that. We need someone to tell us. Unless
we get an answer otherwise, I am going to assume it's that knee. And maybe they just do not want it relayed out there. If we're wrong about that, somebody can tell us and we'll retract it. But it's not a strained oblique, because if he had a strained oblique, he'd be on the IL. And I just have a hard time believing a side issue that was first reported at the same time that Victor Robles went down, aka the first couple weeks of the year, is still what's keeping him from hitting from both sides of the plate. I don't know. I think it's probably something with the knee.
Here's one last thing for me for Jorge Polanco, just for some context for people, and just take this into account as you watch him play. He has taken significantly more at-bats in every facet of him playing with the Mariners this season, left-handed, than he has right-handed. So if he looks a little cold, a little rusty from the right side, there's a pretty good reason for that.
Right.
He needs to get some live pitching as a right-hand batter. So yeah, he might not be as good as he was in the first half or in the first month left-handed. So I wouldn't really expect that. Once he finally gets 25 plate appearances under his belt and can be a league average bat from the right side, then it's like, all right, now we can start putting some expectations on it, I feel like.
That's probably right. Yeah. All right, let's take a quick pause here. We're going to talk to you guys about our friends over at Pagaccia's Pub 85. You'll hear us talk about it, you guys. You need a spot to go watch a game with your friends, you can head over there. There's food, drinks, games. There's more than 20 TVs, so you can watch a bunch of different sporting events. Maybe you're interested in watching the French Open, like both of our parents like to watch. So maybe you want to watch some tennis along with the Mariners being on. You can do all that over there if you plan a night out there, if you plan a day over there. And if you do, consider going during happy hour, because drinks are $3 and $4 from 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday through Friday. Those are awesome deals. All of that's over at Pagaccia's Pub 85 in Kirkland. All right. I think we're ready to rip through some mailbag questions.
Well, let me shout out one thing before we start the mailbag. I have one thing I need to get to before this. You and I talked about Harry Ford when we filled in for Brock and Salk on Monday. And we talked about how, it's the Mariners are in a bit of a predicament of how to get him on the roster, and it's really tricky. So we cut the clip of it and we posted it online here on Thursday. And I'd say it picked up some traction. Lyle, I think you and I single-handedly just increased Harry Ford's trade value and put him back, not inside he's in the top 100. Harry Ford's now probably a top 30 prospect in baseball in the, how many hours? 10 hours since I posted that clip.
Dude, this is nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, this tweet as we currently speak has 218,000 views. I don't know how. Like, I didn't think Harry Ford was personally this popular among other fan bases, but this is spread across other fan bases. We've got Angels fans saying, we'll trade you Taylor Ward and Nolan Shanaway for him, which, like, they're saying that. I don't think the Mariners would ever trade with the Angels, but still, fans are saying it. You've got Phillies fans talking about trades. You've got Padres fans saying, oh, like, we'll offer all this stuff for him. I mean, people are out here offering, like, ridiculous trades after this Harry Ford clip.
Orioles fans, like...
Oh, yeah, the Orioles said, we'll give you guys O'Hearn, we'll give you Yennier Cano, and we'll give you Judd Fabian, who's a prospect, all for Harry Ford.
Harry Ford's had a great month. I've never seen so much interest over a player over 1 month in the most hitter-friendly league in all of professional baseball. Cole Young's not getting thrown around in trades this much.
No, he's not. No.
I feel like if we asked Harry about this, he'd be very happy with it. It's like, well, there's nothing better than being popular.
I mean, there is somebody that just tweeted, that quote tweeted this, another Angels fan, that says, please trade him out of the AL West. Guys, I'm all for Harry Ford being great, and I hope he is, but like he hasn't played a game in the big leagues yet, and he's not Roman Anthony.
There is some national interest in Harry Ford. If you have not seen this, go over to our Twitter account. It's not hard to find.
No.
It's the tweet with all the likes and replies to it. How many replies does this thing have now?
Hundreds.
225 at the time of recording. That's insane. You guys are full of ideas, and that's why you guys are the best listeners. So we really appreciate that. But I want to give a shout out to Harry for having a great month and providing us with some unreal content. Thank you, Mr. Ford. You were doing awesome.
Our listeners are great, and they always are great. So I don't want to shy away from that at all. But I got to say, I think a lot of this engagement isn't from all our regular listeners. It's from a lot of people that found this tweet in other fan bases.
Mm-hmm. And Lyle and I are not going to re-engage with why. We laid out all the reasoning of why Harry Ford is a tough call-up. If you want why, and you're expecting to hear it, please go listen to us hosting Brock and Salk on Monday. We explained all of it. There's an entire segment of us talking about it. So I'd recommend.
I think we talked about it on Monday's podcast too.
Right. So you have multiple hours worth of content to hear us talk about the pickle that the Mariners are in with Harry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend you go check that out. For the full breakdown, much more in-depth than we have time for today. But, man, Harry and Cole have been crushing in Tacoma, and it is definitely getting eyeballs from a lot of people, which is a very good thing. It's great for their development. I think it's everything the Mariners wanted to see. And it apparently is a lot of things that people in other fan bases wanted to see as well. So,
and last but not least, it's great for us. Harry just provided us with this unreal content that's got hundreds of thousands of views. And Cole Young, shout out him and the Mariners for not getting called up the day we went to sit down and interview him. Because I got to tell you, we mentioned earlier we went to go interview him, and we did, and it was great. It was right after, whenever you're listening to this, we interviewed him the day after he had 5 hits in a game, and we're like, oh no, he's already been going off. He just had 5 hits. We're going to be on our way down on I-5 South to Tacoma. We're going to get a notification that he just got called up, and we're going to be pissed. Not because we don't want to see Cole Young in the big leagues. We just want it to happen like 30 minutes after we're done with the interview.
Well, actually, you and I thought it would be worse. We thought we'd be pulling into the parking lot, and then Cole drives past, and you are like, wait, was that Cole?
Oh, he's on his way on. He's going on I-5 north. Where are you going, Cole? He was
we have
great.
A time scheduled.
Yeah. He was great. So we're looking forward to having you guys hear that one.
He was good. So keep your guys' eyes tuned for that. He's the man. You guys will hear it. We
will either post it in roughly a little under 2 weeks, or if he gets called up before that, we'll post it then.
Oh God, Lyle.
Is Julio out of the game?
No. Polanco just tried to bunt again.
Motherfucker! See, this is why we can't do podcast live. Are you serious?
Based on all the things that have happened in this game, maybe we should do it more.
Good God,
We've got more
man.
reaction out of live events during this pod than we have in a while.
All right. We're in the middle of recording, so I guess I can't tweet the clip. Or I still might, but whatever. I'm going to say it right here, our little 3-second clip for everybody listening that I tweet when these type of events happen. I hate bunting, dude! End scene.
All right, let's get to the mailbag. We'll distract you, Lyle, with some good mailbag questions. So let's start off on Patreon and Tanner. Tanner's the newest member of our superstar tier, so shout out to Tanner. We really appreciate your support. Tanner, thank you so much. So Tanner's question is, and Tanner references back in 2022 when the Mariners had Matt Brash start some games, but they eventually moved him to the bullpen where he currently is today. And Tanner is wondering, with how well Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock are pitching, that with Bryce Miller's struggles, they could move Bryce to the bullpen and make him Matt Brash 2.0. Lyle, do you think that is a realistic possibility?
I don't. Look, I know it was talked about in 2023 a little bit when Bryce Miller got toward the end of the year and he had the ups and downs of his rookie season. And by the end of his rookie year, he was only throwing 2 pitches. And that's why the conversation stirred up a little bit then, where people said, if he's really only going to use 2 offerings, is he just better off in the bullpen if other guys come up? There was also the idea that when Robbie Ray would come back, you're going to have to find a solution for the rotation. He obviously got traded. So I don't think so. Bryce Miller is way too evolved as a pitcher now with too many offerings, and we've seen what his peak can be, where there's just no way he'd be in the bullpen at this point. Like, the thing about Matt Brash is, I know he was supposed to be a starter, and he won that job in 22 over Kirby originally, but it became fairly clear through a few Matt Brash starts that he just did not have the command and probably the durability to be a long-term starter. So the Mariners said, okay, he's got weapons, let's utilize it better and put him in the bullpen. Bryce Miller, as we saw last year, was one of the 10 best starters in the American League and one of the best starters in baseball just in the second half. So I know it's been tough sledding. I think the injury is a big part of it. But if he's right and he's pitching well, Bryce Miller is a starter. I understand the question, Tanner, believe me, but I don't think the Mariners would ever do it.
I think you highlighted it perfectly. Once Bryce showed last year that he can hang and be a cream of the crop starter, all talk about being a reliever goes out the window until like your arm shot. Like that's it. That's the only thing that puts you back in the bullpen. Bryce would be a really good bullpen arm right now, I'll say. If you only have him do what he does and only throw for an inning, his fastball would probably be 98 miles an hour, and he'd have a wipeout breaking ball that just breaks that much more because he can throw at max effort. He'd be insanely good at that. His fastball is plus when he can throw at 98 miles an hour, but he doesn't do that when he's a starter because he's got to throw so many pitches. It's just not, based on how good he's been, it's just not realistic to think about putting Bryce Miller in the bullpen over Emerson Hancock and Logan Evans, as much as we love those guys staying in the starting rotation. If all 3 of those guys are healthy, even with Bryce's struggles earlier in the season, Bryce Miller gets his rotation spot back. That's what happens when you pitch the way he did last year. You get so much leash to struggle and work through some things and evolve as a pitcher, if that's the case. So yeah, that's just how it is for Bryce. Bryce has earned that spot, and it's going to be his until the Mariners have to force it out of his hand.
I'll say it again. I would watch the trade market come January 1st. Yeah. The way Logan Evans is throwing the ball, to Tanner's point, there is no doubt it has opened a ton of eyes. I would assume the Mariners have been nothing but impressed through 6 starts of his career. And because the Mariners already have starter depth with Logan and Emerson right now, and they'll have more starters coming with Gerangelo maybe as soon as next year, the way he's throwing, yeah, I think a Luis Castillo trade could make a lot of sense. Especially if the Mariners want to take that money, get a team to eat most of it, and reallocate it somewhere else. Because if the idea is Logan and Luis in 2025 are going to put up in 2026 are going to put up similar production, one's going to make league minimum and one's going to make $23 million a year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would make a ton of sense to have Logan take that spot, or Emerson, we'll see. And then you take the Luis Castillo money, hopefully get a team to eat it, and reallocate it somewhere else toward the offense, presumably.
It's a pretty good transition into our next mailbag question, Lyle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true. I spoiled it. My bad. My bad, Jordan. I know. Okay, let me give you proper attention here with this question. So, Jordan on Patreon asks, and thank you for the question, Jordan. He says, is there a world you trade Luis Castillo for a bat? I will now quickly say, yes, there is. It's just not going to be this season because he has a no trade clause that he can veto at any time until January 1st. I am going to assume he doesn't really have much interest to pick up and leave and move somewhere else mid-season, especially when he's on a contending team and a team that he likes and has been with for a few years now.
What do the Dodgers call?
Would they, though? I mean, when they're healthy, their rotation is as loaded as anybody's.
When they are. When they're healthy.
I would be surprised if the Dodgers called.
It could always be let's say a worst case scenario, though. Like worst case scenario injury-wise for the Dodgers, they call.
Maybe. Again, so now you're asking.
He would fit right in. Aging former star pitcher.
Well, how many former stars are in that rotation? Guys are stars.
They have stars, but they also have some really hit or miss stars, like Glasnow. Right? When he pitches, he's really good. He's not very healthy.
I would so first off, you're asking the two of us, not you, Jordan, but by TJ framing it this way. You're asking the two of us now to kind of try and tap into the mind of Luis Castillo, which is impossible. I don't know where he'd veto a trade to and not veto a trade to. You can only try and basically guess with a blindfold on. But what I do know is on January 1st, that no trade clause expires and the Mariners can trade him. I think this winter, he will likely get dealt and the Mariners will make that move. But I don't think it's going to happen at this deadline. One, I think he would be uninterested. And number two, you also just can't do it at this deadline. Because if they do that sends a bad message to this roster. You can't do it. The optics of it, again, I'm sitting here saying, I think Luis would probably be on another team next year, if I had to guess. But you can't do it at this deadline because it's the Kendall Graveman thing all over again. Even if the logic behind it made some sense where you thought you weren't going to win a World Series with that roster and trading a reliever with half a year of control for TJ's favorite player ever, I know, and it brings up wounds in TJ's head, but the idea of trading for a bat with some potential and 6 years of control at the time made sense. The problem is it pissed off that entire clubhouse and turned everybody kind of upside down. And you can't do that here in 2025.
If they somehow got a legit bat back for him, I don't really think that's the case. I just don't think you can get a legit bat back for Luis Castillo given his salary and his age and his production this season and last season. So
I mean, if they're getting our buddy Kyle Tucker back for Luis Castillo, sure. Yeah. If any Mariners player in that clubhouse complains about that, then I don't know what to tell him. But that's not happening. A Kyle Tucker acquisition is happening. It's just not going to be for Luis Castillo. And Kyle Tucker will be a Mariner. So.
And even once the offseason rolls around, in terms of trading Luis Castillo, I would tamper your expectations for what they get back. They're not going blue chip shopping with Luis Castillo unless they eat his money. And they're not trading him to eat his money. So, yeah, you could get a bat, just might not be a very good one. Just consider, right? Robbie Ray was coming off Tommy John surgery, but they traded a guy making a similar amount of money. You could probably say is a similar caliber of pitcher, and ended up getting a guy the Mariners cut this year.
I think they get more for Castillo than Ray, but
they would. How much more? Enough for it to be worth it?
I mean, there was talks about Tristan Casas this winter, right? So somebody may now Luis is going to have one less year of control
with even money.
Yeah.
Even-ish money.
I think you could get something back for Luis Castillo. Again, I would have people temper their expectations. You're not going to trade him for Gunnar Henderson to the Orioles or something like that. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be nothing they get back. I guess it also depends on how much they ask the team to eat monetarily. Because if the Mariners want that whole salary off the books so they can reallocate the funds elsewhere, maybe it's less you get back.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't get much at all. You might get a couple of lower level prospects back. And like a fringe big leaguer.
$23 million a year still is not a ton for a starting pitcher to make of Luis's caliber.
Not a ton of money. Not a ton for how much you pay a single player, but it's a lot to ask someone to eat. And they'd have to eat multiple years of it. Right.
So, okay, yeah. That's fair.
So, yes, they could get a bat. I don't think they're trading Luis Castillo for a massive franchise-altering bat in this offseason. But sure, I mean, they'll try as soon as January 1st hits. I think they will act promptly to do that. Because they're just, based on how they've operated the last 2 calendar years with their budget, they've told us everything they've needed to tell us about how they're going to operate with a contract like that and a player like that.
Right. Again, I do think there's a world they could get something back. Not the whole world, but like something. And 2, again, if they do that, that opens the door up big time for Logan Evans.
Yeah.
Or for Emerson Hancock. I'm sure it would be a battle in spring training. But, yeah.
Okay, next question on the mailbag comes from Xander. This is a personal question, Lyle. He says he has to know, without getting too personal for the both of you, what gravitated the both of us to go to ASU, and what are some of the best memories you had?
No, nothing's too personal about this. I think I can speak for both of us when I say what drove us to ASU was an unbelievable journalism school, like journalism school, media program, etc. That was the biggest driver. I would also say for me, the idea of having 4 pro sports and spring training in the city was very appealing because not only was there opportunities potentially with that, but it gives you things to do and you're around a lot of sports, which obviously I wanted to be. Did I say spring training? And spring training. Yeah, 4 pro sports, spring training, college sports, and then on top of all that, just impeccable weather once you get to October.
Yeah.
So,
and it's fun. I mean, it is a party school. People, it lives up to its billing. Like, it has everything you would really want. And at least I can speak for it how it was when I went there. For people who focus on the financial aspect of it, they made it pretty affordable for people coming out of state. Compared to some other schools going out of state or going to a private school, it's a lot more manageable. And I think you get a lot of the experience too. It's good for a competition aspect. Like there's a lot of people who are very driven in the journalism school and have ideas of what they want to do, and it pushes you to be better. I mean, you and I can speak from experiences that happened that, you know, sort of benefited us when we did that. You meet people from all over the place, a lot of out-of-state kids. That's also a big growing experience. So there's, I'd say, a lot of positives of sort of leaving where you're from and going somewhere else to do something where you get to sort of check every box off of what you want to do, and you get to have some fun doing it with some really good weather and plenty of things to do. Yeah. So it worked out pretty great. I've zero regrets on decisions I've made by going there. And I say Lyle do the same, because this podcast doesn't exist without it.
No, without both of us going to school there, right? Yeah. And being in the journalism school. Yeah, best memories. TJ mentions party school. I mean, Mill Avenue's pretty awesome. Like we won't lie. So, we had plenty of fun nights on Mill Avenue, which is the big bar scene at ASU. So, like that, going to the Waste Management Open was super fun. We all took a bunch of trips during our time at school, which was awesome, whether it was for sporting events or just to go hang out in places. Like we went to, Vegas for the Pac-12 tournament, and we went to LA a few times, and some of us went all the way to East Lansing, Michigan, because ASU played Michigan State, and a couple of us broadcasted that game. So, I would say memories like that.
And I will throw one more out there that you didn't mention. They beat the Ducks our senior year, second to last home game. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, well, you got to broadcast that game.
Yeah, I was calling that game. That was pretty cool. That was one of the bigger wins they've ever had. So it was pretty cool to experience that. It was good, great weather. I thought it was a pretty good capper to our senior year that unfortunately just ended pretty shittily because COVID happened. So. Right. That is sort of what I look like as like the pinnacle moment of the end of it. So it was pretty fitting.
But that game was in November. We did stuff after that. So
we did, but not. Yeah, I guess like the waste management. Maybe I'll speak from a professional sense then.
All right. What was I going to say? Yeah, so for those who haven't seen that game, if you go look up ASU versus Oregon 2019, it was this crazy game, and it was capped off by these two dudes who ended up doing absolutely nothing with their career by the names of Jaden Daniels under center, dropping back, throwing this absolute dime of a deep ball spiral. Racing down the field was a receiver who also did absolutely nothing with his life and career by the name of Brandon Ayuk, who just absolutely outran an Oregon corner, caught it in stride, scores an 80-yard touchdown, and as soon as he gets into the end zone, he holds the O up like the way people hold up the Oregon Duck into the air. He fake spikes it down and then kicks it. He got 15 yards for it. But
no, he broke it over his knee.
But then he kicked it too.
And then he kicked it. Yeah.
Right. So
that was pretty cool.
Jaden Daniels to Brandon Ayuk was pretty cool. Yeah, it was.
Side note: Herm Edwards is a war criminal for what he did.
Yeah.
At ASU.
Awful.
So.
Also, it was still targeting against Texas.
Yeah. Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Couldn't get through a segment without that.
No. I mean, we weren't at school for that, but yeah, it's a fun place to go to school, man. I guess, if anybody's ever interested, we'll tell you nothing but good things about it. That's for sure. We had a blast. The worst moment, if you want one, was early on in my freshman year. I see this kid in the dining hall, and I was like, I've never met you before, but you look like you couldn't throw a first pitch to save your life. Oh, and then that was TJ. Yeah. That was a bad day. A real bad day. And then I met him. It's like, oh, you're from Seattle? Well, I hope I don't have to watch you.
Do I have to walk off this podcast right now?
I was like, I hope I don't have to watch you throw a first pitch.
Get to the next question.
You're shaking your head. Are you shaking your head at the fact that the Mariners have just totally blown this game?
Well, I turned away because you were disrespecting me, but I did see that first, yes.
Yeah, so when we started this podcast, it was 2-2. It goes to extras at 2-2. It is now 9-2 Nationals.
Well, at least Jorge Polanco bunted, Lyle. Good thing they could have made it 9-3.
Again, I know we had a busy day today and we had to do it and we had to record this in the middle of the game, but good God, man. This is why we can't record in the middle of the game. 7 runs in extra innings. Oh, boy.
The Mariners, fun fact, they will continue their streak of never beating the Nationals in a series in Seattle.
I said on Brock and Salk on Thursday that this game had some real implications. Look, there's no must-wins in late May. TJ's right. The division leads don't mean anything in late May. But, vibes-wise, implication-wise, there was some stuff riding on this game in the sense of you could either go beat Mackenzie Gore, really good starter, you get back home, you win 2 of 3, some of the momentum shifts back your way after losing 3 of 4 to Houston. Instead, and this is what I was worried about, they're about to drop 2 of 3. They've lost 2 series in a row. The offense for a month has not looked good. You're still battling injuries in your rotation. They got to turn this thing around.
The vibes aren't good. You're right.
Vibes are not good, and they're in a little bit of a free fall mode right now. They can still turn it around, obviously, but
slump. I wouldn't say free fall. Free fall, you got to lose 7 games in a row.
Sure, and that's fair. But they have lost 19 of 30 now after this loss tonight.
That's not good. No, that's not good.
11 and 19 might not quite be a free fall, but it's not good either.
And the stretch, and at least for them, in theory, the stretch of games they're going on is manageable. This series was supposed to be very winnable. They get the horseshit Orioles next week. They suck. If the Mariners can't score against the Orioles, Lyle, then there's a problem.
But what if the Orioles just start hitting for the first time all year against them?
That would be an issue. Then you get to play the Angels. The Angels stink. Diamondbacks is going to be tough. Then you get Guardians, Red Sox. And then Cubs, Twins, Rangers. There are some winnable series in there, but this one you wanted to have because the Nationals are not good. Their pitching staff is supposed to suck outside of Mackenzie Gore. And while Mackenzie Gore dealt today, the Mariners had a good game 1 and nothing else.
Sounds like they should bring back Logan Evans.
He was the vibes guy the whole time.
Oh. We won't say no. Obviously, we won't say no. All right, let's quickly rip through the final couple of these. David on Patreon asks, is Kevin Seitzer the MVP of the 2025 Mariners season?
No, but that doesn't mean he's not very important to the Mariners' success. I can't label a hitting coach as the MVP of anything, unless, let's say, they're top 5 in offense. If they end the year with the 5th best or higher offense in terms of runs scored, then I personally will give Kevin Seitzer the team MVP. But there's, I think, too many other factors. There's all the personal hitting coaches for all these players. Kevin Seitzer, remember, is working under Edgar Martinez. Edgar's got a say in this hitting philosophy as well. Dan Wilson puts the whole thing in motion. You have the people in the front office stacking the roster together. You have all the individual players working their tails off to be better. There are a lot of factors in here that go into making a good team and a good hitting team that I don't know if I can just stack it on Kevin Seitzer. As impactful as I'm sure he's been for some of these guys, there are a lot of other voices around these players that impact how well they hit and how well they don't. Just if you want a reference on this, we spent most of an interview with Ryan Divish about 13 months ago, right before the Mariners were about to go play in Minnesota, about hitting coaches and stepping in the box and who you're listening to and all this kind of stuff. He laid it out pretty well in that interview. You can go back and listen to it. But just the details of like where these guys get their information from as hitters, it's not all from the hitting coach.
Yeah. What I'd add to that is even if Kevin Seitzer has been incredibly important, I just can't call anybody not named Cal Raleigh the MVP of the Mariners right now. There's just no way. So Kevin Seitzer has been important. I would also like to see how this offense sustains itself over time because, again, I am not saying this is all on Kevin Seitzer. It's not. Hitting coaches can't go up there and hit for these guys. But the Mariners' offense was really good in April, and they've had a really tough May. So I think we got to see a little bit more of a sample size. Kevin Seitzer, again, has clearly fixed something because the offense is not as tough a watch by any means as it was last year.
Yeah.
But there's a long way to go. And Cal Raleigh's just been a godsend. So.
Well, thank you for the question, David. Next question on Patreon comes from Eric, and Eric's question is, what do we want to see for the next iteration of the Mariners City Connect uniforms? Eric suggests a couple of ideas. He says some neon green outlining ? A 90s Sonics nod, he also suggests.
The Sonics thing would be cool. I just gravitate to the teal for whatever reason. And I know they already have teal jerseys, but I feel like there's something very unique they could do with like some teal and some navy blue. And like they could keep the colors similar to what they already are, but do some pretty cool designs. Maybe I'm biased because I say teal and navy blue and then that is our own logo and that's the colors. But I think they could do some cool stuff with that.
I think it's going to come back to green. I mean, first of all, this is the evergreen state, right?
Yeah.
And I think basing it off a green color, you could do a number of different things with a green jersey. As both of what Eric suggested incorporates green already, the state itself, if you go walk outside and look around, what is the main color you see in Western Washington? It's green.
Yeah.
So and here's another reason I choose green, because other things you see around is you see a lot of blue for the water, and then you have the base colors as well, white and black. Well, the Mariners have already used black, and they've used blue in their jerseys. If they're going to shake it up and do something completely different, I feel like a green and white combination with some, maybe some tie-ins. Maybe you do have a Sonics tie-in on there, on a patch on the jersey, or a font like they've done on the current City Connect jerseys that ties in the Sonics, and maybe something that ties in the green of the Seahawks, and then you tie in the green of the other teams in the Pacific Northwest. I think there's an easy way to sort of incorporate all of that to embrace the whole city. I do feel like it fits, though, to have it be green, because green and blue are the two primary colors of the area. And it's my favorite color, so why not?
You just got to get it right, because sometimes green can go wrong. I actually like the Seahawks action green jerseys. I know a lot of people don't, but the old Seahawk green jerseys were an unmitigated disaster. So You can't have it look like that. You got to get it right.
But you can do what the Red Sox did with their Green Monster jerseys.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is a good green.
Yeah. Okay, last question. This comes also on Patreon from Steve, who shout out to you, Steve. Thanks for coming to the live show. It was awesome to get to talk to you when you were there. Awesome to meet you. All that good stuff. He asks, thoughts on the number of Mariners players in Atlanta for the All-Star game? Over or under 3.5?
This is tough. I wrote down 4 names. But I have this feeling in my head only 3 of them are getting in. Someone's getting snubbed because it's the Mariners. Not everyone from the Mariners is going to get selected. There's not enough recognition from around the league or from the fan bases or from the players to get guys to the All-Star game. Those 4 names are Cal, Munoz, Julio, and Brian Wu. I think there's a pretty good case that all 4 of them should be All-Stars this season. Julio's going to have the toughest case because there are some really good outfielders that he's going to have to go up against. Brian Wu, if you look ERA-wise or WAR-wise, he is right up there at the top American League starters. He would probably be like the last starter chosen or second to last starter chosen, but he'd be in that group. And then Cal and Munoz are locks at this point. It's between whether or not one of Wu or Julio gets snubbed, and I'd say odds are someone's getting snubbed.
I kind of worry it would only be 2. So I'm also going to go under. But I worry it would only be Cal and Munoz. I hope not, because somebody else should get in, if not both of them. Mm-hmm. I hope it's Wu. And it's no disrespect.
If Wu's turning the rotation lines up, I think he's got a pretty solid chance. I mean, his ERA right now is 2.4. If his ERA is 2.7 heading into the break, it's a pretty good case.
Or what if it's even lower?
Could be lower. Yeah, I mean, he could go. If he's below 2.4, I would anticipate he makes the All-Star game because he'd probably be near the lead of the league in ERA.
Right, exactly. And then he also asked, what Southern food are you most looking forward to eating? I don't know if I've actually had Zaxby's before, so maybe something like that. I don't know a ton about Southern food, but I would say something like Zaxby's or like soul food or something like that.
We've had Zaxby's recommended to us. I've only driven through Georgia, so I don't have much to go off of. I don't know very many people in Georgia. Soul food, yeah, like some wings. I'm pretty sure the barbecue there is still pretty good. But if I need a chain, I'm going to Waffle House. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're in the South. We're going to Waffle House. Like, Lyle, you want to go to Waffle House at like 2 a.m.?
I mean, we'll probably be out till that time because usually All-Star Week, we're always doing a bunch of stuff and they're long days. And by that time, you need something to eat. And it's like, well, Waffle House is open.
Yeah. Why not?
Right. So
great service. It's good. It's really good at that time of day. It's good any time of the day, to be honest. Last time I went to the South, we went to Waffle House for our first meal. It was great.
Yeah.
I can't complain.
I don't know if we'll quite be out till 2 a.m. every night at All-Star Week, but it is like they're long days. In the best of ways, they're long days. So,
but we can go, yeah. So we can have food open at all the times, which is
right.
Great. And hopefully there's one close to the ballpark, closer than the food options to the Rangers ballpark, which there was not any really anywhere near there.
No.
So that is something we hope.
Yeah. Shout out to you guys. Good mailbag as always. Really good mailbag. And if you want to get in on these questions, go sign up for our Patreon, you guys. Again, we do take questions on social media sometimes. I'm not saying we won't in the future, even next week. But to get priority on these mailbag questions, go sign up for our Patreon. We'd love to have you. And you can start firing your questions away, whatever you got.
Let's get through these last 2 things quickly. First thing, let's go down on the farm. Lyle, do you have a standout Mariners minor leaguer you want to highlight?
I do. And I was thinking about having it be him anyway, but now I'm going to double down. TJ, since we started recording this podcast, there was a 3-run home run hit by Harry Ford.
Now, I know Keith Law published his new prospect list this week. Is he going to have to publish a new one tomorrow?
Thanks to us, yes. I mean, honestly, as we're sitting here, should we do a quick check of where this clip's at since we last talked about it at the start of the podcast? All right, it is now at 235,000 views. It's gone up 17,000 views in like the 45 minutes we've been sitting here recording. What is going on? This is nuts. Anyway, Shout out Harry Ford. The reason it's getting all this traction is because he has been awesome, and he hit a 3-run homer again right here on Thursday night. So he's my guy. He's
Lyle, someone suggesting Luis Arise for Harry Ford.
Well, has Luis Arise been good this year?
I know he's been terrible on defense.
Well, of course he has. I'm talking about his offense.
He's been fine.
It's very Arise-esque. He's actually only hitting 290 this year, but OPS plus.
Which for him is less valuable. Here's someone suggesting the Mariners trade him to the Yankees for DJ LeMahieu.
Okay.
I don't think that would be a very good one.
No. So anyway, he's the standout. He's been ridiculous. Also, Cole Young tonight's reached base 3 times too, with a walk, a couple of singles. Shout out those guys.
They're enjoying the PCL.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil Cole's interview, but he did talk to us a little bit about sort of the adjustments they have to go through in Tacoma with some of the more veteran pitchers, older pitchers, better location on some of their off-speed pitches, some of their breaking balls. And it's something these guys have to get used to, but Cole and Harry have gotten used to it pretty quick, and they are mashing their way through Tacoma, and it's really fun. And it's fun to watch the discourse after the fact, because both of them now are really getting people to talk about them every time they go up there and they just start mashing against some poor AAA arm. Okay, the guy I'm going to highlight, Lyle, Ashton Izzy, I think has been wildly underrated the last calendar year for the Mariners. He was a 4th-round pick for the Mariners in the last couple of years. He's in his 3rd professional season. He had a 2.85 ERA last year, a little bit over 100 innings in Modesto. Probably the most low-key sub-3 ERA ever, because I didn't even really realize he had a sub-3 ERA last year as a decently high draft pick. And now this year, he's made 4 starts, very short inning sample in Everett, but he's got a 1.8 ERA. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I mean, look, they drafted Ashton Izzy back when they did with the intention that this guy had some serious upside. I think we're seeing it a little bit now.
Yeah. Pretty
obviously,
cool.
Yeah. Like, obviously, this system is loaded with arms and highlighted by the guys at the very top in the big leagues. But as more arms start to work their way through the system, again, like, you have the upper echelon arms in terms of the prospect arms, if you still want to call Logan Evans a prospect, him, Durangelo, Sloan, etc., and then the 5 in the big leagues. But, like, there's another wave of these arms who might not be, like, total blue chip guys, but are good, between Michael Morales, between Izzy, between a few others.
Speaking of Keith Law, he had Sloan already in his top 50.
Dude, people are high on Ryan Sloan.
Dude, Ryan Sloan's thrown like 30 innings. People should be excited.
Yeah.
They should be very excited.
Yes, correct.
All right, let's get to our Russell Wilson Umpire of the Week. This is the easiest Umpire of the Week of all time. If you watched Thursday's game, you would know it is Andy Fletcher, because JP Crawford had quite a few things to say to Andy Fletcher in tonight's game. I have never seen JP that angry ever in my life. He exploded when he gets tossed out of the game. There's a pitch like 4, 5, 6 inches off the plate that gets called a strike. JP wasn't happy. Fletcher was having a really tough night back there. He got pelted by some balls, too. It was enough to earn him this prestigious award.
Sad. You know, JP got mad one other time. I think in Cleveland he got thrown out of a game for arguing balls and strikes, that he wasn't happy about a call, and he was pretty pissed off. But I think this one on Thursday takes the cake.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sitting on my couch, and all of a sudden I hear yelling, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh. Jeez, JP.
Well, for every good reason, he did that. Like, yeah. Well, surely Andy Fletcher will be held accountable. They always are.
You would think.
4, 5 inches off the plate. I mean, it was not close. Not close. Yeah. Sad. All right. I think that just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. If you want to stay on top of all of our stuff, you can do it right over at our website. That's marinelayerpod.com. It's got everything you need, you guys. Go get your merch. Sign up for our Patreon if you're interested. We would love to have you. All the episodes are over at our website as well, audio and video. Live show schedule. We'll have our next live show coming up here in the next few weeks. We'll get you more details on that when we have it. All that stuff is over at our website, marinelayerpod.com. And you can find us all across social media at marinelayerpod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.